There are days when your body refuses to obey the simplest command. The alarm goes off, sunlight spills mercilessly through your window, and the world outside demands that you rise and engage. Yet, despite every logical reason to move, you remain pinned to your bed as though unseen chains have bound you to the mattress. Your heart beats, your lungs fill, your eyes blink, but your soul feels immobilized. This isn't laziness. This isn't weakness. This is exhaustion of a kind that most people cannot see and therefore cannot understand. It is not ordinary tiredness that a nap or a cup of coffee will fix. It is the fatigue of someone waging an invisible war, fighting battles without applause, and holding burdens that press into your spirit until it feels like breathing itself has become a victory. If you've stumbled onto this message, it's not an accident. The truth is that you've been drawn here because your soul is crying out for words that affirm what you've been silently enduring. You are among the chosen ones, the ones marked with purpose, who carry a weight heavier than what most can imagine, yet remain hidden in plain sight. To the outside world, you may look as though you're simply lying in bed, scrolling through your phone, or perhaps just too tired to get up. But the reality is so much deeper. As you listen, if you feel this message is already stirring something deep within you, if it is resonating with your spirit in ways you can't fully explain, pause for a moment and acknowledge it. Hit the like button right now as a sign of agreement. Subscribe if you haven't yet, so you never miss the nourishment prepared for your journey. And most importantly, comment 99 down below. That number is not random. It is a declaration, a symbolic act that says, I am stepping into alignment. I am agreeing with this word. I am claiming my breakthrough. These small actions might look ordinary, but they are seeds, and even digital seeds have the power to echo in the unseen realm when they're done with intention and faith. Are you ready? Your bed is not just furniture. It has become a battleground where thoughts collide, where silence roars louder than thunder, where invisible adversaries whisper defeat into your ear, while God Himself sits quietly beside you, refusing to leave, even in the darkness. And here is the part you must not miss. This moment is not your defeat. It is your preparation. What feels like paralysis is actually pressure, shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more deeply connected to your Creator than ever before. You are not here because you've failed. You are here because your spirit has been entrusted with a war most others could not survive. The heaviness you feel is not punishment. It is evidence that heaven has marked you, that you are carrying something sacred, something that the enemy desperately wishes to crush before it emerges. That's why this exhaustion feels so different. That's why no amount of shallow encouragement seems to lift it. Because this isn't just about your body being tired. It is about your spirit being stretched in the heat of battle. Perhaps you've noticed how misunderstood this struggle is by those around you. People look at you and say, "Why don't you just get up? Shake it off. Be positive. Pray harder." They don't realize that what they're suggesting feels like asking a drowning person to simply swim faster. They don't see the invisible weights pressing on your chest before you even open your eyes in the morning. They don't hear the cruel voices echoing inside your mind, repeating lies so often that they begin to sound like truth. They don't understand that when you try to rise, it feels like climbing a mountain without oxygen, every breath a battle, every step a victory. And yet here you are, still breathing, still surviving, still resisting. That in itself is proof of your strength. You've become skilled at hiding it. You smile when inside you're screaming. You show up for others when all you want is for someone to show up for you. You answer the calls, offer the encouragement, wipe away the tears of others, all while your own spirit is unraveling behind closed doors. You've carried the weight of being strong for so long that people forget you are human. And when you finally collapse, they misinterpret your exhaustion as weakness or lack of faith. But what they see as weakness, heaven sees as warfare. What they mislabel as avoidance, God recognizes as resistance. You are not withdrawing because you've given up. You are lying down because you are fighting to stay alive in a world that has tried to break you on every level. And here is a truth few dare to say out loud. Chosen ones do not always fight with visible swords or bold actions. Sometimes the greatest warfare is choosing to stay alive one more day. Sometimes victory is not in shouting from a mountaintop, but in whispering, "God, I'm still here," through tears that no one else sees. Sometimes your most powerful prayer is not eloquent, not rehearsed, not memorized. It's the broken sob pressed into a pillow late at night when no words will come. And yet heaven hears it. Angels respond to it. God counts every tear as a testimony of your endurance. This hidden war is not new. Even the strongest chosen ones before you have walked through it. Elijah, the prophet who once called fire down from heaven, collapsed in a cave and begged God to end his life. Jeremiah, who carried the weight of God's messages for a rebellious nation, wept so deeply and so often that he was called the weeping prophet. Even Jesus himself, the Messiah, the Son of God, fell to the ground in the Garden of Gethsemane under the crushing weight of his assignment, his sweat turning to drops of blood as he cried out in agony. If these mighty figures endured such exhaustion, why should you believe that your weariness disqualifies you? Fatigue does not prove you are weak. It proves you are human. And more than that, it proves you are engaged in battles that matter, battles that are shaping your destiny. But here's something many forget. You were never meant to carry this weight alone. Even Jesus, on his way to the cross, needed Simon of Cyrene to help him carry the burden. If the Savior of the world accepted help in his exhaustion, why do you believe you must prove your strength by suffering in silence? The exhaustion you feel is not a sign of failure. It is an invitation to stop pretending you're fine, to let down the mask, to acknowledge before God that you are tired. It is an invitation to surrender the load you were never meant to bear alone. The world tells you to hustle harder, to perform better, to mask your pain behind productivity. But the truth is this: rest is not weakness. Rest is obedience. Because God never asked you to prove your worth through constant performance. He asks you to abide, to trust, to rest in Him. And when you do, something inside shifts. It may not come with fireworks or grand revelations. Sometimes it comes in a sigh. Sometimes in the sacred silence between breakdown and breakthrough. Sometimes in the simple relief of realizing you don't have to carry it all anymore. And make no mistake, your bed, the place that has felt like a prison, has also been a sacred altar. It has been the place where God has sat quietly beside you, watching over you when you thought you were utterly alone. While the enemy whispered that you were forgotten, God stayed. While darkness pressed on your chest, God breathed life into your lungs. While shame shouted that you were unworthy, grace covered you like a blanket. This isn't just where you've been lying in despair. It's where you've been proving that you can endure, even when no one else sees the battle. So let me tell you what's really happening. The exhaustion you feel is not your end. It is your initiation. It is the process by which God forges strength within you that cannot be stolen. The silence that has felt so suffocating has also been the cocoon in which your transformation is taking place. And what feels like isolation is actually preparation for the next season of your life. The enemy is terrified of your awakening, which is why he has tried so hard to convince you that you are broken, lazy, weak, or forgotten. But the very fact that you are still here, still breathing, still searching, still listening to this message, is proof that you are not finished. Something is coming. Something you cannot yet see, but can already feel stirring within your spirit. You've been through nights that would have crushed most people, but you survived. You've carried burdens that would have destroyed others, but you kept going. You've cried prayers that felt like they vanished into the void, but they were heard. Every moment of survival was not wasted. It was building toward something. And soon, you will discover why this battle has been so personal. You will see what the enemy was trying to keep you from stepping into. And once you see that, you will never view your exhaustion the same way again. For most people, the bed is the ultimate symbol of peace and recovery, the place where the body can collapse, the mind can release its grip on the day, and rest can gently weave the torn edges of life back together. Yet for you, the chosen one, this simple piece of furniture has been transformed into something far more complicated. It is not simply a mattress with sheets and pillows. It has become the very ground of your fiercest battles. When the noise of the outside world finally fades and the responsibilities of the day fall quiet, that is precisely the moment when another, more dangerous noise begins. The demons you cannot name do not come with shouts or fanfare. They arrive as whispers, disguised as your own thoughts, weaving their lies into the fabric of your mind until they feel indistinguishable from truth. You're not enough. You're falling behind. You're a burden. God has forgotten you. These words do not thunder. They seep like water into the cracks of your soul, filling every corner until the silence of the room feels deafening, suffocating, unbearable. It is in that silence that fear grows its teeth. Depression drapes itself over your chest like a weighted blanket you cannot throw off. Anxiety paces restlessly at the edges of your thoughts, constantly reminding you of everything that could go wrong before you even move. Loneliness seeps in, twisting itself around your spirit until you begin to wonder if this is what life will always feel like. For many, the bed is where they escape. For you, it is where you are trapped. And every time you gather the strength to rise, invisible chains tighten, pulling you back into the spiral of despair, forcing you to wrestle with thoughts you never invited yet cannot silence. What looks like idleness to the outside world is in truth resistance of the highest order. Because in those moments, you are not resting, you are wrestling. You are not weakly collapsing. You are fiercely holding on, refusing to let the whispers define you, refusing to surrender to the shadows that want to consume you whole. But here is what the enemy never accounted for. God meets you in that very place. The same God who split seas for Moses, who sent fire from heaven for Elijah, who raised the dead for Jesus. He has not abandoned you to fight this battle alone. He sits quietly at the edge of your bed, steady and unshaken, not demanding that you perform, not scolding you for collapsing, not judging you for the heaviness you cannot explain. He stays, he waits, he listens. He catches the tears you have never dared to show another soul, the tears that stain your pillow in the midnight hours when your strength is completely gone. He hears the broken whispers that never make it into eloquent prayers, the desperate sighs of, "I can't do this anymore," spoken into the darkness. And though you may not feel it in those moments, heaven responds. Angels move on your behalf. Mercy flows into the cracks where shame tries to root itself. Grace covers you when self-condemnation screams that you are too far gone. The truth is that even on your worst nights, especially on your worst nights, He has never walked away. So the very bed that feels like a prison is also your altar. It is the hidden place where prayers too deep for words are lifted. It is the battleground where invisible wars rage and victories are won without anyone clapping or noticing. Every tear that falls onto those sheets is a testimony. Every breath you take while suffocating under despair is evidence of divine resistance. The enemy calls it failure, but heaven records it as perseverance. And while the darkness presses harder because it senses your potential, God uses the very same place to strengthen your soul in ways you cannot yet understand. That's the twist the world doesn't see. The place where the enemy whispers the loudest is often the very place where your purpose is being forged. Isolation is not punishment. It is initiation. Your hidden suffering is the sacred furnace where resilience and discernment are born. And here lies another truth. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. For too long, you have wondered why you feel everything so intensely, why you walk into a room and sense an atmosphere shift when no one else notices, why sadness strikes you from nowhere, why anxiety rises even when circumstances give you no logical reason to fear. You've asked yourself, what is wrong with you? Why you are burdened by emotions that don't seem to belong to you. But there is nothing wrong with you. You are not too sensitive. You are spiritually wired. God designed you to perceive what others are blind to carry discernment that penetrates beneath words and surfaces. You feel the oppression in a room before anyone admits it exists. You sense danger before it arrives. You detect deception behind polished smiles and hollow reassurances. You are built to feel the currents of the unseen. That level of perception is not ordinary. It is divine design. And yet with this gift comes a unique kind of pain. Because when you feel deeply, you carry burdens that were never yours to carry. You mourn over what others laugh about. You intercede for people who mock you. You cry for those who would never cry for you. You sense spiritual heaviness in spaces that others move through without a thought, and it leaves you drained and misunderstood. This is why small talk feels like torture to you, why shallow conversations leave you exhausted instead of refreshed, why crowds can make you feel lonelier than solitude. It is not because you are broken. It is because your spirit is tuned to a higher frequency, one that detects what most cannot bear to notice. And though it often isolates you, it is also the very gift that makes you irreplaceable in the kingdom's work. But the danger comes when the enemy convinces you that your sensitivity is weakness. If he can trick you into believing that your deep feelings make you unstable, too emotional, or unfit to lead, then he can silence your discernment. He can cause you to numb your awareness, to bury your prophetic sensitivity beneath layers of distraction or shame. That is why the battle has been so fierce. Because your perception is not only for you, it is a weapon against darkness. It is how heaven speaks through you. It is how angels whisper warnings and guidance. It is how the Spirit alerts you to what others ignore. Ordinary people do not wake up with grief for nations they've never seen. Ordinary people do not cry out for souls they've never met. Ordinary people Do not step into a space and feel the invisible warfare that hovers in the air. But you do. And that is because you were never meant to live an ordinary life. Yes, it is exhausting. Yes, it is lonely. Yes, it often feels like no one understands the weight you carry. But the exhaustion is not evidence of weakness. It is evidence of engagement. You are not standing on the sidelines. You are on the front lines. And the more the enemy tries to convince you that your gift is a curse, the more certain you can be that it is in fact your key. Your tears are signals. Your burdens are intercessions. Your sensitivity is proof that you are spiritually awake in a world lulled to sleep. The reason you cannot settle for shallow living is because you are designed to transform atmospheres, not just exist in them. You are a divine instrument, and though the world calls it fragility, heaven calls it power. So the next time someone tells you that you are too sensitive, remember this. What they call sensitivity, God calls discernment. What they dismiss as fragility, heaven celebrates as prophetic awareness. What they misunderstand as instability, the Spirit affirms as spiritual perception. And though it costs you deeply, though it isolates you, drains you, and sometimes leaves you weeping with no explanation, it also makes you dangerous to the kingdom of darkness, because the enemy cannot slip past someone whose spirit is awake. He cannot hide in atmospheres that you can instantly detect. He cannot deceive communities when your discernment exposes what others cannot see. This is why your battles have been so intense. This is why you've felt misunderstood and overwhelmed. Because you are not ordinary, and ordinary attacks were never going to be enough to silence someone like you. And now, as we move deeper into this revelation, we must confront the most dangerous battle of all, the war not just against your strength, not just against your sensitivity, but against your very will to keep going. The battle that creeps into your thoughts when you are most alone. The whispers that go beyond discouragement, beyond exhaustion, into the hollow ache that wonders if disappearing would be easier than surviving. This is the battle most never talk about, the one carried in silence, rehearsed in private, but almost never spoken aloud. And yet it is the very war that reveals just how chosen, just how dangerous, and just how essential you truly are. There comes a point in the hidden war where the battle shifts into the darkest territory imaginable. Not the struggle of the body, not the war of the emotions, not even the spiritual heaviness that weighs on your chest, but the quiet, suffocating question that hovers in the shadows. What if I just disappeared? This thought is rarely spoken aloud, because it is not about drama or drawing attention, nor is it rooted in a desire for others to notice. Instead, it rises from that deep, hollow ache within the soul when life feels unbearably loud, when the weight of unseen burdens has piled so high that even breathing feels like labor, when existence itself begins to feel foreign. You don't dream of peace anymore. You fantasize about absence, about ceasing to carry the unbearable load, about stepping off the spinning wheel of responsibilities and pain. It is a thought not of selfishness, but of exhaustion, a thought that whispers in the middle of sleepless nights, when even the act of staying alive feels like the heaviest task in the world. Yet, hear this truth with clarity. That urge, those questions, those fantasies, they do not mark you as broken. They do not brand you as ungrateful or faithless. They mark you as human. A human being who has been carrying God-sized weights on a soul stretched thin. A human who has spent years pouring into others while bleeding internally. A human who has stood as the strong one, the encourager, the prayer warrior, the dependable rock, while silently praying someone, anyone, might notice that you too are unraveling. You grew tired not because you are weak or undisciplined, but because you have fought for far too long without backup, without relief, without the kind of support your calling deserves. Spiritual isolation is real, and for the chosen, it is excruciating, because the burdens you carry are too sacred to explain and too divine to hand off to just anyone. This loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the ache of carrying a mantle that very few could ever comprehend. You must understand this. Your battles are never only about you. You are not fighting merely for your own survival. You are fighting for legacies, for lineages, for generations you may never meet, but whose futures are tied to your perseverance. You are fighting for doors that must open, for strongholds that must break, for chains that must shatter, not just in your life, but in the lives of those who will come after you. The enemy doesn't attack you with such intensity because you are weak, but because you are dangerous. He knows that if you ever rise fully into your assignment, you will alter the course of history for countless souls. And so his strategy is often not outright destruction, but quiet suffocation. He doesn't always need to kill you. He only needs to convince you to walk away from yourself, from your calling, from the destiny that terrifies him. That is why the war has been so brutal, why the thoughts of quitting have been so persistent, why the heaviness sometimes feels unbearable. The enemy's greatest fear is not your collapse, it is your comeback. And yet, even when everything inside you screamed to let go, something within you refused. A flicker, faint but stubborn, kept glowing deep in your spirit. It didn't shout, it didn't overwhelm, it simply stayed. That ember, planted by God Himself before you were ever born, is the proof that your story is not over. That flicker is sacred. It is the eternal whisper of heaven, declaring, "Not yet." You may not feel strong, you may not feel holy, you may not even feel awake. But the very fact that you are still here, still breathing, still listening, still searching for words like these, is evidence that your assignment is not finished. You are not kept alive by willpower alone. You are sustained by divine purpose that refuses to release you. Understand this. You do not have to rise with perfection. You do not have to rise with eloquent prayers or profound answers. You do not even have to rise with energy. All heaven asks of you is willingness. The willingness to take one more breath, to whisper one more prayer, to place one trembling foot on the floor. Even if your hands shake, even if your voice cracks, even if your eyes are swollen from nights of weeping, rise anyway. Because every rise terrifies the enemy more than every fall ever could. The devil's greatest fear was never your stumble, never your collapse, never your seasons of weakness. His terror lies in the moment you rise again, scarred, weary, but carrying a testimony forged in fire. He fears the day you stand, even if staggering, with a voice that declares, "I made it through." For in that moment, you become unstoppable, not because you feel invincible, but because you carry proof that even hell could not silence you. And here is the truth. You must let sink deep. The very moments you almost quit were the moments right before everything was about to shift. The nights you thought were your breaking point were in fact the threshold of breakthrough. Your survival has never been random. It has always been prophetic. Every tear was not wasted. It was a seed. Every silence was not meaningless. It was a sentence in your testimony. Every breakdown was not your end. It was the blueprint for your rise. The bed that felt like your prison was actually your proving ground. The silence that felt like shame was your sacred cocoon. The exhaustion that made you doubt your worth was proof that you were wrestling with angels, just as Jacob did before his name was changed to Israel. Your name, too, is about to change. Not because you never fell, but because you refuse to stay down. So when you rise, even if in fragments, you rise with power. You rise carrying the weight of everything you endured, but transformed into wisdom, into compassion, into authority. You rise as the voice you once needed to hear, as the light that pierces rooms full of despair, as the warrior who knows exactly what it costs to keep living when quitting seemed like mercy. And the ground beneath your feet will remember. Because when a chosen one stands again, even in silence, even in slow motion, something in the unseen realm shifts. Heaven celebrates, hell trembles, and the earth takes note. You did not survive this long to go unnoticed. You were not carried through hell only to retreat back into hiding. You endured so that you could rise as living proof of God's faithfulness. Now is the time. Not because you feel ready, but because your assignment cannot wait. Not because you are brimming with strength, but because even in weakness, God's power is made perfect. You rise not because the pain has vanished, but because purpose has called your name louder than the whispers of despair. And make no mistake, God has been with you in every moment. He sat beside you when you couldn't move. He caught your tears when no one else saw. He fought battles for you when you were too tired to lift a prayer. He never left, and now he rises with you. So declare it. Whisper it if you must. Shout it if you can. I choose to rise. Let heaven record it. Let hell fear it. Let every lying voice in your mind go silent before it. Because this is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a new chapter. The version of you that the darkness tried to kill is gone. In its place stands the warrior forged in silence, tested in sorrow, strengthened in secrecy. You are becoming the answer to prayers you once prayed. You are becoming the miracle you once longed for. You are becoming the very evidence that God can take ashes and produce beauty, that He can take brokenness and release power, that He can take weariness and birth resurrection. Even if you rise in pieces, rise anyway. Even if your faith feels small, rise anyway. Even if your future feels unclear, rise anyway. Because each step forward, no matter how trembling, signals to the universe that destiny cannot be delayed any longer. You are stepping into what has always been yours, into the life that pain tried to keep you from, into the purpose that was written for you long before your struggles began. And as your feet touch the floor, the ground itself will testify. A warrior just stood up.